Thank you, and I call Keith Brown, the final speaker in the open debate.
Thank you, President Officer. Sometimes when we're having debates like this, we really should remind ourselves of why we're having the debate about these changes in the first place, and we had a very powerful reminder of that from Karen Adams a short time ago. But I think it's also worth mentioning again that, particularly for victims of sexual offences, the latest figures show, as has been mentioned, only 24% of those accused of rape in single complainer cases are convicted, which is a shockingly low figure. And aside from the proposals put forward by the Government, I'm not hearing any other proposals that have been put forward just now, and it cannot be the case that we do nothing. I've also heard a fair bit of criticism about the size of the bill. Well, you go and look at the system. See what you can pick out one bit without affecting other bits. It's got to be a comprehensive bill. It's got to address a number of different things at the same time, which perhaps accounts both for its complexity and its size. We've known about this discrepancy in terms of convictions for sexual offences for a long time. This is a chance to do something about that, and we can't forget, and many of us here have spoken to many of the women in particular who have come forward with their testimonies in recent years, waiving their right to anonymity for the public good, to share their experience of the legal system and its shortcomings with the public. And they've also helped create an awareness campaign which has quite successfully highlighted the many shortcomings of the legal system and what can be done differently. And I have said for a number of years now that the system is failing, in particular women. A couple of the points that have been raised. I hear the Tories saying that it's taken a while to get round to abolishing not proven. Well, they didn't take the decades or centuries that the Tory party took, but we have come forward with this proposal in the past, and of course it was rejected by Parliament, and this time it looks like it will be accepted by Parliament. And the most compelling reason, to my mind, is simply the fact that a judge cannot explain, is not allowed to explain to a jury the effect of the not proven verdict. And that can't be good in any system which is meant to be based on lay understanding. I think those that argue we must listen to the Lord Advocate, I think we had one statement to this effect, we must listen to the Lord Advocate on such and such, but not listen to her. So we must listen to her about the size of juries, but we shouldn't listen to her in her compelling support for juryless trials. Or that the judiciary are against us. Well, they're not. Lady Dorian is not. There's many in the senior judiciary that are in favour of many of these proposals. Now, all that says is that they're divided, like the rest of us. There are different points of opinion, but let's at least acknowledge that. I would say, in my view, the point that was just made by Michael Murrah, the vast bulk of which I did not agree with, but the point he made about commissioners is quite a good one. Now, I supported the establishment of a commissioner. I would just say that if it's to be just established for its own sake, then we shouldn't have one. But if there is a definite role for that, then we should have one for the reasons which have been mentioned. And it has been something that was supported by the Conservatives before. We're now 3 years into this Parliament almost. I'm still waiting to see the Victims' Bill that I and others have been demanded to support, or the Domestic Abuse Registration System Bill that we have been asked to support. We should really see these things. These were manifesto commitments. And surely if we're not going to see them until after we take this bill through, what is the point? Because they could affect the impact of the bill. So I would say it would be useful to hear in the summing up where the Tories are with those two bills which they were committed to bringing forward. I think it's also perverse, in my view, not to support the general principles of the bill. I don't think, and I have to be perfectly honest, there is the slightest chance of the Conservatives voting for this at any stage. We heard from their spokesperson a demolition of each of the 6 sections of this bill. It's not going to change. We know the approach to the Tories in relation to this. However, I would still say to the Cabinet Secretary to do as she's been doing, which is listening to others, taking on board the points, genuine concerns that are made, because having shown that willingness to not just listen but to adapt her proposals, I think she's shown this as a genuine debate, and it would be so much more powerful if you could get to a position where the whole Parliament spoke as far as possible with one voice. But I do think we have to be realistic about the prospects for that. I think we will not get support from the Conservatives. I doubt, given what Michael Murrah said, we'll get support from the Labour Party either, although I think it's always worth listening to Polly McNeill and Katie Clark in terms of some of these concerns that are there. So I think it's very important that we do take this forward. It's something that's been wanted for a long period of time. It will make a difference. In relation to a pilot, we should remember it is a pilot. And if we're not going to do what was referred to as being a bold change. What are we going to do? If we don't think a bold change is required for the appalling situation we're now in terms of the treatment of women in particular, in terms of sexual offences, what is the big idea that others coming forward is to do this? Should we not try this? The Scottish legal system has got a very proud history of being innovative, willing to embrace change, and in fact very often leading other systems. Many systems around the world have taken inspiration from our system. And I think this is the chance for us to do likewise. If it doesn't work, and I don't dispute the point that's been made about having properly set out and transparent criteria for displaying that it has worked, if it doesn't work, then we don't continue that. I understand that point. And the last point I'll say in a very... I'm in my last minute just now, apologies. The last point I would say is that for once I can't remember before disagreeing with my good friend and colleague John Swinney in relation to the jury sizes. All I would say, the point that he also made in relation to corroboration is an important one. If this is not to take place until 2028, there perhaps is time to take another big chunk. And honestly, corroboration is a huge issue that affects lots of different elements of it. If that was to be dealt with to the satisfaction of the legal system and of Parliament, then perhaps that's something that should drive what we do in terms of a jury size. And it's worth bearing in mind that the entire College of Senators and many people in the judiciary are very supportive of further reforms in relation to corroboration, notwithstanding the very effective reforms which have already taken place. So let's be honest about what we support here, and let's be honest that we do require to have change. And if you don't support this change, at least come forward with something else.
Thank you. And we move to winding up speeches. And